Hi everybody, it's Krish Kandaya here in Jamaica. I've been here for a few days now, working with the Global Leadership Summit, Scripture Union, at Nona Church, and doing a little bit of work liaising with the Jamaican government to talk about the Foreign Secretary's Global Charter and Child Welfare Reform. My expenses here have been covered by those organisations. It's given me a little bit of time to reflect out of the maelstrom of British politics about what's going on back home, and I'm still in touch with the news. I'm seeing fear dominating British politics, and particularly fear of the stranger. That's called xenophobia in the Greek, xenos, stranger, phobia, fear. And that xenophobia is driving a lot of the policies and the narrative in our politics. And we're seeing fear in the Labour government when it comes to the rise of reform. You might have seen that in some of the polls, Reform are tracking even better than the Labour Party for the first time. And that's unusual at this stage in a government, less than a year old, and yet already being challenged by this upstart party. And that fear is driving our government to make some interesting narrative decisions about how we're talking about what's going on in our nation. Now, all the polling tells us that Reform are known for one policy, and that's their policy on immigration. I mean, just ask yourself, what do you know about Reform's position on education, for example, or helping children with special needs, or healthcare? What do you know about that? Probably not a lot. That's not been something they've been vocal about, but they're very vocal about immigration. And that focus on immigration is particularly targeted on those that are coming to seek asylum in the UK. Irregular migration, it's sometimes called, and they label that illegal migration. That's another conversation because it's not actually illegal to claim asylum in Britain. Now, when your focus is on irregular migration, you're focusing on probably less than 6% of all the people that come to the UK. We call that net migration. Most of the migrants that come to the UK are coming to work, maybe in our care industry, maybe in healthcare, or they're coming to study, maybe international students. And there's been very little focus on that. For example, when there was riots in the UK after the terrible atrocities that took place in Southport, it was an asylum hotel that was attacked. It wasn't the university for having too many international students in Liverpool. It wasn't the Google building or Amazon or Starbucks for importing too many staff. It wasn't elderly care homes where we are reliant on care workers from other countries to come and serve our elderly. The focus has been primarily on those people that are making their own way here. And that is hard, isn't it? Because it's less than 6%. That's the focus. And even if you fix that, you'd still have large net migration numbers. And so it feels like this small group, often of very vulnerable people, many of whom are fleeing from war and terror, that's the group that's getting the blame for everything. And the Labour government has done something good in this space. They've cancelled the Rwanda scheme. The Rwanda scheme was an immoral programme to punish people for coming to the United Kingdom under those irregular means. And I felt it was always punishing the wrong people. So instead of, it would be like a judge punishing someone that was raped rather than the rapist. So the people that have been trafficked or smuggled here by other people, they were the ones punished, not those who did the smuggling. And Labour's flipped their approach and said, look, you know what, we're going to smash the gangs. Smash the gangs is the three-word slogan to match stop the boats. So we're using the same language, we're just kind of changing it a little bit. And the focus is better. I think you're punishing the right people. That's a good move. And we're talking about beefing up our immigration and border services, using anti-terror laws to do that. And again, I'm kind of up for it. But if we're not careful, because we're taking that securitization approach and really punishing people, that public that is worried about immigration might start fearing people that are arriving under those irregular means more. And so both sides, the kind of anti-small boats, blame the immigrants groups on the more right end of the scale, and the smash the gangs people, all are adding to this kind of fear culture that we've got to be worried that these guys are coming to take over our country, destroy our culture, rape our children, I've heard people tell me. And so that's a real problem. And I think we need to reset the conversation about immigration. I'm here in Jamaica, and Jamaica has a challenge at the moment. They can't recruit enough teachers because many teachers that are trained by the Jamaican government, a small developing world country, end up going to work in the UK or in America. And that doesn't seem fair, that a tiny little beautiful country like this has spent its money training its population only for them to go and be used elsewhere. And the UK government and the American government don't pay the Jamaican people for that. They just take the skill and use it elsewhere. Similar things are happening in healthcare around the world. And so poorer countries are seeing an exodus of talent to the West. And you see how nuanced this is? I want to be pro people's freedom to move, pro that immigration is a net benefit for countries, but that shouldn't be at the expense of the countries they're leaving. And the whole time we shouldn't be adding to xenophobia. So I wonder whether we could start having a different kind of conversation. Instead of just working with these blunt instrument figures like net migration being up, we might want to say, well, you know, thank you to people that do migrate to the UK to help us in some of the industries that we're really struggling to recruit for. And that might be seen as a temporary measure because we're going to invest in those industries so that we can usefully employ local people. That would be great. And we want to support those countries that we're taking the talent from so that this isn't just a net gain. Look, in history, Britain has a really interesting relationship with the rest of the world. We had an empire, and to be fair, we took a lot from other countries. We took their minerals, we took their workforce. There is a history of slavery. I'm here in Jamaica. Britain had a seminal role in the slave trade that ruined the lives and killed so many people. So there is history here. And for us to be going, we're happy to take from the other nations, but we're not happy for people to come and build their lives among us. That seems a unfair framing. And so, look, I want a politics that is based not on fear, but on love and kindness and compassion and justice. And I'm scared the way that our language is going and our rhetoric is going, that we're just going to play into the hands of those people who are xenophobic. We need another way of seeing this. And I'm nervous that we are actually playing into the hands of those that want to see a little island separate from the rest of the world that has no good word to say about immigration and only see it as something to be feared. Hope that helps. I'd love to know your perspective.